Now that we have made it to the All-Star break this NBA season, there is one big conversation that is hovering over the entire weekend, as that is the idea of expanding the NBA All-Star Game rosters because of the incredible amount of talent that we have in the league right now. And with the NBA All-Star Game coming up, now is a super fun time to get involved with the sponsor of today's video, PrizePicks. And that includes a special offer for you as well. When you log on to PrizePicks, you can see that there are numbers for each of these players, even for the All-Star Game, and you can pick more or less for each of these players and put together a selection of between 2 and 6 squares. And you pick more or less for each, and when you get them correct, you win some cash. It's just that simple. So for example, you could do Donovan Mitchell more, you could do Tyrese Halliburton less, you could do SGA more, and you can continue to add pieces all the way up to 6, and if you get them correct, you win some cash. Now during the rest of the regular season, there's some other stuff to get involved with as well, like these Demons and Goblins squares. The red ones are harder to get but give you higher payouts, whereas the green are easier to get with lower payouts. And PrizePicks also now has a new game mode called PrizePicks Pick'em Arena. In that mode, you select 2, 3, or 4 projections and pick more or less for each. You submit your entry for $5, $10, $20, $50, or $100, and you'll then be placed in a group with other members based on your number of picks and an entry amount. And to win, you either finish with the highest score in your group to earn a cash prize, or if you get all your picks right, 4 for 4 is 10x, 3 for 3 is 5x, and 2 for 2 is 3x. So there's so many different ways to get involved right now in PrizePicks. And if you want to get started, you can use code SPORTING for a 100% deposit match up to $100, and that link is in the description. Again, a 100% deposit match up to $100 on PrizePicks. Link is in the description. And thank you again to PrizePicks for sponsoring this video. Now, at the core of this entire conversation around expanding the All-Star Game rosters is just the fact that the talent pool in the league right now is out of control. Not just that, but the overall offensive statistics have exploded as well. And when you look at the top 30 to 35 players in a league this year from a statistical perspective, every single one of those guys deserves to be an All-Star. Yet at the moment, we only select 24 players to the initial All-Star rosters. And so that has led a lot of people to kind of bring up this conversation around, well, why don't we just add more spots? It doesn't hurt anything to add more spots to the All-Star team. There's so much talent. There's so many guys every year that are being left off the team that should be there, that are worthy of being there. And all the guys that made the team are worthy of being there. And it seems like this problem just continues to get worse and worse every year. So of course, the easy solution to this is just, okay, let's make the All-Star rosters 15 players. NBA rosters are 15 players. What's wrong with 15 in each conference? We have 30 instead of 24. And then that pretty much solves its issue. Well, to me, it's a terrible idea. I do not think in any way we should be expanding the All-Star rosters for a couple of reasons. One, every single year, we basically have expanded All-Star rosters at this point, because never do all 24 guys that get selected actually play in the game. One of them is always hurt or has some kind of other thing that prevents them from playing in the game. And so we always get alternates. We always get injury replacements every single season. Sometimes it's 2 guys. Some years it's 5 extra players that are being recognized as All-Stars in addition to the guys that have already made the team. And presumably, if you were to expand the rosters to 15, there would still be plenty of players that would not make the game because of some kind of an injury. So in a scenario in which we've got 15 All-Stars in each conference, and then let's say there's 4 or 5 guys that don't play on either side, we could have 35 to 40 All-Stars in a single season, which is a massive jump from between the 24 to 30 that we have in a typical year right now. And that might not seem like that big of a deal. Some of you might be watching this video and thinking, Tucker, why does it matter how many guys we have selected to the All-Star team? There's no negative to this. Well, we have always judged your worthiness of being an All-Star with how good are you compared to your peers? How good are you within the era in which you're playing? That's how we've always done any kind of comparison historically, whether it be looking back at all NBA teams. There was a time period in the 2000s where it was like Kevin Garnett, Dirk, and Tim Duncan, and all these guys in the front court, and someone was going to get left off of an all-NBA team. And yes, that might not make sense historically because those guys are fantastic players, but it gives you an understanding of how good each of those players were relative to the other guys. It's the only way we can do era to era comparisons. Is in a given era, you could be the best power forward of your era and be compared with the other best power forward of a different era. And the All-Star game, to a lesser extent, also represents that. And so if we add more and more guys, not only are we going to be having 35 to 40 man All-Star rosters if we add in injury replacements, if we go to 30 players, but also it's not going to be as easy to compare an All-Star in the 2010s to an All-Star all-star in the 2000s to the 90s and so on and so forth. Where you rank amongst your peers at your position has always been the way that we have evaluated players within a given era, and expanding all-star rosters beyond what they currently are makes that difficult not only between eras, but also adds confusion to what we have currently in the league. The all-star team is not, oh, you averaged 25 and 10 this year, that means you're going to make the all-star team. The all-star team is supposed to be relative to your position. You're one of the best guards in your conference, the best forwards in your conference, or the best centers in your conference. If you are not one of those guys, you don't make the all-star team, and adding more spots to the all-star team is only going to further dilute that concept. And I can understand why people might initially think, let's add spots to the team, because it seems like every year there are deserving players that get left off. And this year, absolutely, there are more than a handful of players that in a given season, the year that they're having would be worthy of an all-star selection. But that's not what the all-star team is. The all-star team is you are one of the 24 best, or in this case, 12 best in your conference players. And then obviously you narrow that down for the positions. And if you're not one of those guys, if you're not voted as or judged as one of those players, then you're not an all-star. An all-star selection is not equal across one year to the next. It has everything to do with within the given season, at least when it is done correctly. And the other part of this is, right now we're in this crazy talent boom and this offensive boom around the league, and it feels like we need to be adding spots, okay? Let's just say theoretically, a decade from now, the talent coming into the league isn't being developed as well. Maybe we go to expansion teams, and it's just more difficult for whatever reason to put up big numbers and to have an all-star worthy season. If we have right now, let's just say for the sake of argument, we have 35 all-star worthy players in the league this year, okay? Let's just say that a decade from now that goes down and we have, 24 guys that are worthy of making the all-star team, but we have 30-man all-star rosters. Are we going to go back to just having 12? Are we going to continually fluctuate based off the talent level of the league? And then also, if the talent level continues to increase, are we going to have 18-person all-star rosters, 20-person all-star rosters? It doesn't make sense to fluctuate the number of all-star selections with the talent level in the league. One, because we've never done it. Two, because it makes it really difficult to compare between eras. But three, we're never going to go backwards. We're never going to bring it back to 12, because that would be the NBA admitting that there is not enough talent to respectfully fill 15 spots on each all-star roster. We're never going to go backwards. So if you add and you go up to 15, you better be sure that there's always going to be 30 plus all-star caliber players in the league. And there's no guarantee that that is always going to be the case. So again, why would you go forward with it if you're never going to go back? And the last piece of this as well is all-star selections, to a lesser degree than all NBA teams, but still they do matter. They matter in terms of guys getting contracts and how much money they're going to get paid. And being an all-star or not being an all-star, again, is hierarchical. It depends on where you are, compared to your peers. And if we expand that, and then all of a sudden more guys are getting, max contracts that maybe they do or don't deserve, and the all-star selection process doesn't need to be changed. There's nothing necessitating this change. Now, the only argument I could see against this, if you wanted to go from 12 spots to 13 on each team, I could see that if the league adds, between 2 to 4 expansion teams within the next couple of seasons. If in addition to adding expansion teams, they wanted to make each roster have 13 players, that's fine. I think that makes total sense. You're increasing the number of players, you're increasing the number of teams. Let's go ahead and subsequently increase the number of all-star spots on the roster. If there is a realistic and a logical point to get to with increasing all-star rosters, I think one in each conference, assuming they add between 2 to 4 expansion teams, that does make total sense to me. Other than that, I can't see a reason why we would do this, because already, if you're the 12th man in the all-star game, you're not really playing that much. Certainly not if you're the 13th, 14th, or 15th here down the road. And in terms of the actual structure of the game itself, they kind of struggle to get all these guys on the floor anyway. And some of these guys just go to the game and they play, 5 or 6 minutes because they're the last all-star selected or they're an injury replacement. And for all these different reasons, it feels like an unnecessary change. I can understand initially why people would think that it would make sense, because there is so much talent, and that is an awesome and an amazing thing. But it's also never been easier to score at the NBA level than it is right now. And it's never been easier to put together an all-star caliber resume in the NBA than it is right now, because of the statistical production that we have right now in the league. I can totally understand how people get there. I just don't think it makes sense for a variety of different reasons.